Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, happy Friday. Welcome. We are joined today by Lucy and Maggie, my friends and colleagues. This is the advanced session. And all that means is that we're assuming that you have been working with the Synergy software for some time, and that and have some level of comfort with basic functionality. And what I'm going to try and do is just show some things that you either are not using regularly or may not be familiar with, and then just throw out your questions. I brought a very short case that I first saw Dr. Shankran present in Munich last year. And so this is an extremely condensed version of the case. Obviously, I just have 3 slides on it. It is a sensation case, but as some of you might know, the way Dr. Shankran practices is with the 8-box method, which basically means that you look at every aspect of the patient, including, the physical, the chief complaint, the physical generals, mental generals, the local peculiarities, modalities, delusions, the mind symptoms, and the sensation. When you add that all up, I think there's 8 things that you look at. So it's a complete 360-degree analysis. You're doing repertorization. You also have your sensation analysis. There might be some experiential stuff. So what I've done is I've condensed the case into 3 slides. I have, this is a case of eczema. So I'm just going to share my screen. Young girl. And she has a lot of scaling and itching on her scalp, and also in the folds of her skin. So in the bend of the elbows, in the neck folds, behind the knees. And it's a standard presentation of eczema. It gets worse in the summer. It's better in the winter. And she didn't have much more than that to say about it. It really bothers her. She's been using creams and so on and so forth, and it hasn't really helped. In terms of her, so we said, well, what other complaints? And the other thing then she said is that she has a problem breathing, and she also has a problem with aching legs. And it gets worse in crowded rooms, and also in the summer. And she was told that it's a vitamin deficiency. She took vitamins, it got better, but now again, she feels like she can't take a breath. And she's trying to take a breath and she just can't breathe. And so we, when she was asked to talk more about it, it basically, there are many situations in her life where she feels like this. She can't take a breath. She feels uneasy. She feels she doesn't have space, like she's in a closed box and she needs that space. She's blocked. She doesn't like being there. She wants to get out. She wants to move out. She wants to rush out, as if someone, as if she's tied up and there's pressure from inside and it's pushing, and she wants to burst open. She wants to break the bonds. And she doesn't just feel like this in a crowded room. She says when she goes to class, she cannot sit in the middle of the bench. She has to sit on the outside of the bench. Otherwise, she feels the same sensation. If she has to go for an exam, she feels the same way. If she's asked to present, so basically this sensation of being in a closed room, in a small space, being tied, and then she has to burst out. And everywhere, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. So if you look at it from a sensation perspective, this, I'm not going to talk sensation here. This is more about the program and how we can analyze a case like this. So if it is a sensation case and you know the sensations and they are a pattern through different aspects of her life and her experiences, then there are many ways in the program to look at this. And so what I thought I would do is just take this very short case with these predominant sensations and show what can be done. So of course, one of the standard, the other things I have here is, so, the main sensation words that she has are feeling boxed in, suffocated, can't breathe, there's pressure, she's choked, trapped, tied down, bondage, break the bondage, break apart, break free, get out, burst out. So these are a lot of the words that repeat in the case. And then, of course, so if you just look at her physical sensations and some of the fears and dreams, it is obviously possible, to do a straightforward repertorization. And this, I'm hoping that everybody here who's watching is familiar with a straightforward repertorization and how we would do that. You have your repertories, chapters, you can go into a chapter and you can add things into a clipboard. And that is a straightforward repertorization that can be done with a case. The other thing, that is possible here is to go to something like a sensation repertory. And of course, the sensation repertory comes in your program. Let me make this bigger. So the sensation repertory is something that comes with the program when you have Vital Quest, which is the sensation analysis module. But it would be possible here, for example, and this is a repertory of sensations. So if you see a repeating sensation or the core sensation in a case, then it would be possible to repertorize the sensations in the same way that you can repertorize, the physical aspects and the mental aspects and the dreams in a case. So in this, for example, some of the main sensations are feeling boxed in. And so we could, just add that. And you can see that now in the clipboard, I have the sensations that I put in there. The same way you could add some more sensations. And so here we can see even this is similar to what would happen in a regular repertory, where you might see a rubric and you can see that there are no remedies associated with it. So in this case, we would turn the cross-references.
Can I interrupt for one moment? And is there any way you can blow up, make it bigger?
Sure. Should I just kind of zoom in, or
maybe zoom in, maybe make your fonts a little bigger?
Okay, sure. Okay. So let me move the zoom bar down here. Is this, so do you want me?
That's good. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So as you can see, I typed SUFF and it took me to suffocated, which is a big recurring theme in her case. And as a sensation, it actually has no remedies. So when I turn the cross-references on, I can see that it's suggesting an alternate rubric for that sensation. So I'm going to use this and put it in. And you can see that some of these other cross-references here can also be useful for her. And we've used some of them already. So we can see here, though, that some of these sensations of being boxed in or suffocated, not being able to breathe, are in general oxygen, ozone, nitrogen sorts of themes. And you can see that that comes up. Row 2, the carbon group, the nitrogen group, And it can help you locate the remedy in a particular grouping, subgrouping, kingdom. Also being tied down, boxed in, are hammer-melody themes. So you can see those come up. And so if you are looking at a case from a sensation perspective, one of the ways to analyze that would be to use the sensation repertory. The other thing that's interesting, very interesting in the case, of course, is that she has, and I don't know if that's big enough there. She had a lot of peculiar fears and dreams, principally, so she was scared of natural disasters, of ghosts, of being stuck in the slides in water parks, and she has dreams of being stuck in a pipe. And it correlates with her feeling boxed in. When she was asked what does she imagine when there are natural disasters, she said that everything collapses, it's an earthquake, and you're buried alive and you can't breathe. She also has a fear of the sea at night. And when questioned about that, it also goes back to, it has no end, it's dark, and I will drown, and then I will not be able to breathe. In a crowd also, she's scared. It feels claustrophobic. She's scared of getting lost. And said, what is the feeling of being lost? And she said, it feels like you're trapped and you can't breathe. So it keeps going back to the same things. And then she dreams of tsunamis and coasts and earthquakes. And then she has these very intense dreams of killing and stabbing with knives. She burnt a friend alive. The friend and I decide to kill each other, so we stab each other with screwdrivers. There's another dream in which there's a dead body and all the blood is on the floor, and there are knives in her hand and her dad's hand and her brother, and there is a body that we have stabbed a lot. So there's very peculiar dreams. So the other thing that I wanted to show here is that if you know which grouping that you're working in, or you know already the kingdom and the subgrouping, then you can hone in using the very specific either physical or mental generals or local peculiarities or any peculiar aspects of their case that do not have to do with the kingdom or the grouping, but with the patient themselves. And so it would be very useful then to take something like this and do a kind of global search to look for the remedy that has these dreams of natural disasters and fears of natural disasters and killing and stabbing and knives and murder, and also of the sea, but only at night. So, and tsunamis. So she, we can also do something like this where you could do, and then I'm going to use dream within 3 words of sea or ocean in the same remedy as dream. And we could make that earthquakes or tsunamis, or so I'm just going to run that as a search and see what comes up. And there are 11 remedies that come up, which is a nice manageable number to look at. The other thing, so this is just a general search for any remedy that has those kinds of dreams in it. We could also limit this search now or filter this search for remedies from the subgrouping that we think this remedy might be. And so, for example, we could use the filter button here, and I'm going to run this. This will this will only run as a reference library search. And so I'm going to filter the search in the reference library using the kingdom. And I want to limit it to row 2 or the carbon series, which was also something that came up in the sensation analysis, even though we could only come up with 3 similar sensations. And I'm going to apply that. And now you can see that the filter is applied because the filter button turns pink. And I'm going to run this search. So I'm going to keep my original search, and I'm going to run this as a new search by clicking on the plus button. And now the search is filtered by the carbon series, and you can see that only 3 remedies come up now. And of the 3 remedies, you can see that if we're really looking at the right side of the periodic table in row 2, then there's only 1 remedy that shows up. That's on the right side of row 2. And so it's also possible you can save your sensation analysis on one clipboard. You can open another clipboard, and you can put this as a rubric into this clipboard. And this is the search that we did. If we want, we could change that, let's say, and change it to earthquakes and run that as another search and see what comes up. This search is, again, still filtered. And now you actually only get 1 remedy. And so just using her peculiar fears and dreams, if you are convinced that you're looking at a row 2 remedy, then it is possible to hone in just using this kind of a global search to come to the remedy. This is also, not a remedy that one prescribes very often. And so if it ends up being a remedy that you don't know a lot about, then, you can always, there are many ways to study the remedy in the program. You can go at it, if it shows up in your repertorization and your analysis, you can come here and you can always go and view the remedy in your reference library. And this will bring up the remedy and all of the references that are in here. And that would be one of the ways. You could also come in here and type using the type to search box. And that will bring up all of the references that you have on ozone. For me, this was an interesting case because I didn't realize that ozone had such violent dreams. And it would be, as a teacher or a homeopath or a student, it would be interesting to learn more about the mind state of ozone, or teach yourself about the mind state of ozone. But also, given that you are looking at the right side of the periodic table, and a lot of these sensations can be sensations of oxygen, nitrogen, as well as ozone. Another feature that's possible to use in terms of differential diagnosis is to compare remedies. And this is an advanced search feature. It is in all the programs, regardless of the library you have. And you can just come here, you can choose your remedies. So let's say we decide to look at ozone, and then compare it with oxygen. And also let's compare it to nitrogen. So you can, of course, so there are different things. Okay, and so I'm going to go back in here and make sure I have all 3. And you can see that I have all 3. Apply, and you can see that they're here. Now there, we could isolate the rubrics that occur in all 3 remedies, but that would only show us all of the rubrics and sensations and the picture that's common to all three. What we're trying to do is to see what the differential diagnosis is, what is peculiar just to ozone and does not show up in oxygen or nitrogen. And so in that case, I would go here to the mind section. You can also limit, and you can say, show me only those rubrics that have 5 remedies or less, or 10 remedies or less, or even just single rubric, single remedy rubrics. You could do that as well. I'm going to leave it at any number for now. And what I'm going to say is, show me the rubrics, just the mind rubrics for ozone, but that are not there in oxygen or nitrogen. So these would be peculiar just to ozone. And they do not appear in the other 2 remedies alongside of ozone in the right side of the periodic table in row 2. And I would set this up as a new search. So instead of clicking on search, I would click on the plus button, and this would save all my other searches that I had done previously. So when I do that, you can see the compare remedies comes up as a different tab, and I have all my other searches. And you can now, so these are the mind rubrics for ozone that are not there in oxygen or nitrogen. And so interestingly, when we go down, you can see that there is a lot of sort of what we would call darker rubrics. So there's rubrics here about death, delusions of an abyss, delusions of devils. And when you come down, interestingly, to the dreams, you also have dreams of an abyss. She felt like the sea at night was this deep, dark, if you go in there, you don't know how deep you'll go. That sort of fits in here. There's dreams of animals, destroying animals, body parts being cut up. There's dreams of a box, but flying. She also had dreams of colors and rainbows. And that comes up here: death, bodies, decapitation, disease, evil, earthquake, houses falling. She felt everything falls and she's buried alive. So you can see, interestingly, ghosts. She was very scared and had dreams of ghosts. So all of the dreams are here, and they're very peculiar. Dreams of killing, knives, dreams of being lost. And everything that she said is all here, and you're able to see that. You could also just run the search again. And this time you could say, show me the rubrics, mind rubrics that are only there in oxygen and not in ozone. And you could run that as a separate search. And now you have the mind rubrics for oxygen that are not there. And you can see that the dreams are very different. Of course, in the program can only show what exists in the literature that homeopaths have produced. So if there are provings or a lot of clinical literature for one remedy over another, then you will see a preponderance of material and rubrics for that remedy over the other. I mean, we see that in lachesis all the time. It just dominates all of the other snake remedies in terms of content. And so we can see a little bit of that going here, where there are 1 or 2 very good provings of ozone. And so you can see that there are many more rubrics available for ozone than there are for oxygen. But these are the peculiar rubrics of oxygen that are not there in nitrogen or in ozone. And you could go back in here and look at the same exact thing for ozone. So it's very useful not just for differential diagnosis in a case, but also to educate yourself about a remedy that you may not be as familiar with. The other thing that's interesting is, would be that you can do is to look at the respiration of oxygen versus ozone, the respiration rubrics, because the entire case, even though the chief complaint is eczema, the entire case is really about not being able to breathe. So a very good feature here is to look at things comparatively, side by side. And so what we could do is we could go here and look at, so I want to make sure that, so ozone, let's look at the reverse repertory. And you can choose it for any section, of course. And I'm just doing respiration because we're looking at a breathing case. And so you could look at the reverse repertory in the chapter. And what that does is it collects all of the rubrics for that one remedy that you're looking at the reverse repertory for and puts them all together. So these are collected from the regular repertory for ozone. And then what I would do is pull up oxygen. And then again, here I would pull up the reverse repertory, same year. And here is respiration. And if I click on respiration now, it will replace the ozone respiration chapter with the oxygen's respiration chapter. So instead, I'm going to do what would be a right click on PCs and a control click on Macs. And I have set it up on my MacBook as a double tap. And so that is possible to do in your settings. And I'm going to say open in a new window. And now I have, this is the respiration chapter for oxygen, and this is the respiration chapter for ozone. And I'm just going to go here and I'm going to select, so here when you hover over, it says compare the tabs side by side. At the moment, you can only compare 2 tabs side by side. So if I had 4 over, then I would have to indicate which one I wanted to compare. And so I'm going to say, okay. And you can see now that I have the ozone respiration chapter laid out alongside of the oxygen respiration chapter. And you can do that for obviously anything. You can do that for 2 different remedies. You can do that for comparative chapters for 2 different remedies. You can look at 2 different authors for the same remedy and see what they're saying. And so this way you can compare and see, and this will help you again for education and for differential diagnosis. These are, some of the ways to come at the case, either through repertorization, using sensation analysis, using global search to hone in on a remedy, and doing a more complicated search where you're looking for 3, 4, 5 different elements within the same remedy. And then you can filter it or limit it by a particular area of the materia medica. So either by groupings or kingdoms or even by authors. So there's very many different filters available. And so you could limit that complex search also by 5 or 6 different filters, categories of filters. So I'm going to, it's about 35 minutes. And so I'm going to take a pause here and then see if there are any questions. I see that the chat box is full.
There is one. How did you get to that comparison? If you could run through that again, how you got to the comparison in
Sure.
compare remedies.
Sure.
with a question.
Yeah. So I'm just clearing up my screen here so I can start over. And so in this particular situation, I'm trying to compare respiration in two different remedies. So what I would do is I would come to the reference library and I would, you can, since I'm going to be looking at it in the same reference, which is the complete reversed for a given year, you can either order your reference library by remedies, or you can order your reference library by books. And so I'm going to show it both ways so that you have an idea. So the first time that I did it, which I'm going to repeat, is my reference library is ordered by remedies, and the two remedies I want to search up are ozone and oxygen. So instead of scrolling and going down to the O's, which is way down, I'm going to come up here in the type to search box, and I'm going to type the first few letters of the remedy. So OZO, OZO, and ozone comes up. When I click on the plus sign, it gives me all of the references that I have for ozone. I just chose the one right at the top, but I could choose any of these where, and if my favorite references were pinned at the top in my reference library, then those references would come up here first. So I'm just going to use the complete 2019 because it's at the top, but you could definitely choose other references to compare. And when I click on the plus sign, it will explode the reverse repertory into the different sections. So I'm going to scroll down. I could come into one of these sections and then just type RES to bring respiration up, but I'm not doing that. I could do that. And I'm just going to scroll down because it's a short list of chapters, and I'm going to come to respiration, and I click on respiration. When I do that, it shows me the content for respiration in the reverse repertory for ozone. And the way to know where you are, and of course I have my zoom bar, but if you hover, if you come here and if you click, you can see when I come here and I'm hovering over the tab, at the bottom of the window in the bar, you can see it says Ozonum Complete 2019 Reverse Repertory. And so I'm here in the respiration chapter. I'm going to leave that. Of course, you can study it. I'm going to leave that, but my objective is really to compare. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm now going to look for the second remedy that I want to compare. And you can type as little or as much of the remedy name. So I just type oxy, and all of the remedies with oxy come up, and oxygen is here. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to come here, choose my reference, go to the section that I want to. Now, if I click this directly, it will replace the information that's already on my screen in the right pane. So instead of clicking it, I'm going to do a right click, or on Macs, it's a control click, or you can set it up for a double tap also in settings. I have set it up for a double tap because then it's a one-handed operation, whereas a control click is a two-handed operation. So when I do a double tap, it gives me the option to open in a new window. And when I click that, you can see that it opens a completely different tab. And this is now the respiration chapter in oxygen. If I go back here, I have the respiration chapter in ozone. I could also, go back just for the heck of it and say nitrogen, right? And then I could come to, let's look at nitrogen pure. and then come here. Oh, I'm going to use the same reference to be consistent. And I could come here, and then for this third remedy, when I come to respiration, I'm going to do a right click or a control click and say open in a new window. And so now I have a third tab with the respiration chapter for nitrogen. So now I have 3 different remedies, the same exact book, and the respiration chapter. And you could compare these. You could, sort of tab your way through and look at the 3 different sets. One of the features in the program is you can choose any 2 references, and you can compare another reference. So you can choose 2 references, compare them side by side. Remember that the reference that is highlighted here, the dark blue tab, the one that is active at the moment, is the one that the program will compare the second reference to. So at the moment, the active tab here is the nitrogen respiration chapter. So when I go to the compare tab icon, it's going to ask me which reference now do I want to compare the nitrogen respiration to. But if I was to highlight the ozone tab and then come here, you're still going to see all 3, but you have to know that the default tab that's going to be compared against is the one that's active at the moment. And you're going to choose one of the other 2 to compare with. So I could choose either the nitrogen or I could choose the oxygen. So if I click on the oxygen, then you'll see this is the nitrogen one that is not visible. This is ozone, and this is oxygen on the right-hand side. And those, it can only compare 2 side by side. I just showed you a third one because you can do that. And you can, you can choose then. So now I'm comparing nitrogen with oxygen. So you could definitely do that. And that, is a build on comparing 2 side by side. But if you had, let's say you had 4 open, then you could certainly compare, a different set of 2 by clicking on the different tabs. The other way to do it, so I'm going to just get rid of these tabs. The other way is if you know that you're going to stay in one book, would be to come here and then find the book. So, I could find the book. So I'm in here now, right? And I could go in here and then I'm going to type ozone, and it will bring me to ozone. And again, my zoom bar is in the way, but you can see that ozone is highlighted. So, oops, there. Oh, moves really fast. There. So I typed ozone while I was inside the complete, and I can do this same exact thing. So this is a little bit trickier than doing it the way that I did it earlier. So let's see. Yep, ozone complete 2019. And here we are, respiration. And then I would go back. Let me see if I can do this and then see if I can go to oxygen. I think it would be harder to do this. So let's do ozone and we open it up. And then I would go to oxygen. And I would say open in a new window. And so what happens actually, so interestingly, then it is much easier to do it with remedies when you are in the remedies section. But what you can do is you can place ozone and oxygen side by side. I would have to play with the program to see if I can actually get it drilled down into the respiration section of both while in the same book, and put them side by side. So I would have to play with that. But definitely the way that I did it earlier with being in remedies, looking for the one remedy, looking for the second remedy, and play or third or fourth, and placing them side by side is the more straightforward way to go. So any other questions?
Thanks, Roopali. Maybe if you could review the proximity language and
So I will remove the filters here. So the simplest search is if you're looking for, and we use this all the time, but fear within 3 words of dark. So what this will do is it will search the entire materia medica, and look for any mention in any remedy in any chapter of fear within 3 words of dark. So if fear occurs next to dark, it occurs within 2 words of dark, or if it occurs within 3 words of dark. And when you do that, that's a big search. But it comes up instantly. It will do it both in the repertory and in the reference library, because the construction of words would be such that you would find that search parameter even in rubrics. And so your repertory search will be displayed first. And you can see that you have, for example, this first rubric here, it pulled this up because you have fear and dark separated by 3 words in between. But you also have here mind, fear, dark of, and in this case, fear and dark are right next to each other. And so in the repertory, when you do that, it will simultaneously search all of the repertories and all of the references that you have in your reference library. So as you can see, because that's a common fear, and it would appear in the mind sections of pretty much, every repertory, you can see that all the repertories here are represented. And I mean, other than medical clinical repertories. And so you can see that I can click anywhere on any repertory to see what the rubrics are that came up in any repertory. And so in the 17, or in the complete, actually, you can see that fear of dark comes up both in the mind chapter and also in the vision chapter. You can scroll down and you can look at Boninghausen, you can look at Jar, you can look at Kent. There are some repertories, depending on what you're used to, you may not actually end up going to those repertories, because you end up being more familiar with 2 or 3 of them. What this does is when the search comes up, it shows you that rubric in multiple repertories, and it helps you to broaden your search to even sometimes go down and check what that search is bringing up in other repertories that you may not be familiar with, and maybe helps you hone in on a rubric that you may not have thought of. So that, and then it will also run the search in your reference library, which is all the clinical literature, materia medica, journals, provings, and it will find. So for all the rest, so as you can see, it found 276 remedies and almost 1,700 references that contain that search, criteria. And it will display all the references here, the remedy, the section that it came from, and the book that it came from, as well as a single line of that actual reference from that book that fulfills this search criteria. And if you hover over it, then you can actually see. So I'm just clicking the word fear, and you can see the full paragraph that it came from. And if you double click it, it will actually take you to the reference library, to that reference and that chapter and that paragraph where that where it pulled up that reference from. So when we go back here into our search, you can also export this search. So of course you have, let's create another clipboard here. And, you could find the rubrics that you're looking for and put them into your clipboard. Let's say you like something from Isayaga and you really like that, and you put it in. And then when you come to your reference library, you see that there are 276 remedies. If this was a more specific search and you found good results in your reference library search, you could turn this into a rubric and put this into your clipboard just by clicking this plus button here. So when I do that, you can see it says new rubric added. When I open the clipboard, I have the rubrics that I put in, but I also have my reference library search, fear within 2 words of dark, 276 remedies, and it adds it to your clipboard and your graph as if it was a rubric. And a lot of people actually like to do this and just do their entire repertorization as a reference library search. The difference between doing a reference library search for all of the symptoms of your patient versus doing a repertory search is, of course, that in the reference library, it is searching all of the materia medica as well as all of the primary sources that you have for those remedies. And that includes, provings and clinical literature. Whereas in a repertory, really, it is a second level information because it is the rubrics that were made or extracted from a proving. So people who prefer, homeopaths who prefer to work in primary data will end up actually doing their entire repertorization by doing these sorts of searches and then putting them on a clipboard. And so, you could come up here and say, so no, that wouldn't be as, so let's say I could do that and go, and I could run that as a search. And I would just take the reference library result and I would export it to the clipboard. And so you can see always, also because your materia medica is always, going to be bigger and more extensive than a repertory, which is second level information. You will see sometimes, and it will search deeper and wider. You will see that the remedies that come up in your search will be, sometimes larger because it's pulling from a wider array of information. So you could, technically you could get rid of your rubrics from the repertory and just create a clipboard that is searches around your specific symptoms of your patient. And so I showed you, so the other proximity features here are, you could also say, I could modify this search, respiration asthmatic, and say respiration in the same sentence as asthmatic. So this is a broader search because you're looking for those 2 words anywhere in the sentence versus saying respiration asthmatic here, like I did it earlier, because then you're looking for respiration and asthmatic in proximity to each other versus being anywhere in that sentence. I would not rewrite that search, because asthmatic is a quality of the respiration. You would want those two together because that is the symptom. You would not want to say respiration in the same paragraph as asthmatic, obviously, or in the same remedy as asthmatic, because that puts those two things too far apart. So the more one is a modifier for the other, or the closer that they are together, the closer that they need to be in the search term. So for example, I could do this, I could say, I'm looking in the same remedy, I want, asthmatic respiration in the same remedy as fear within forwards of dark. And now I'm asking the program to look for all the remedies that are available that have asthma as well as a fear of dark. And I could run that as a search. And that will only run as a reference library search, because there are no rubrics that have asthma and fear of the dark in the same rubric. So you can see that it comes up with 69 remedies. And so now what you're doing is you're putting symptoms or characteristics of the patient together and asking the program to find remedies that have all of those qualities. So if you isolate, let's say these are the 4 main things that need to be there for my patient, and these are the most prominent and peculiar things about my patient, then you can create a search, more and more and more complex, but that reflects that, and hope that the program will find some 3, 4, some cases 1, and that's the remedy. But you have, your search has to then make sure that you've picked up the most prominent and the most peculiar aspects of your patient, and that you have converted them into search terms that reflect those qualities. And the program can actually then give you the remedies that fit those very specific, well-worded criteria that reflect very accurately the state of your patient. And so this is a very powerful tool to use. Obviously, so I showed sentence. So the other proximity terms here would be, so this is sentence, and I'm just using the space bar to cycle through the 4 proximity terms here. This is paragraph. And so if you are looking and you want certain criteria, and you want to hone in where they appear in the same paragraph. So in general, within the same paragraph, in materia medica or clinical literature, you're going to be talking about the same thing. So if you want to do 2 qualities of the same thing, that's how I would craft it. 2 qualities of the same feature in the same paragraph would likely appear in the same paragraph. The next one is section. And so you would say, respiration, asthmatic, and then you could say in the same section as respiration difficult within 3 words of night. And so that would mean that somebody has asthma and they also have difficulty breathing at night. So you can craft that search, and I would probably put it in the same section because it would be in the respiration section. And then the last term is, of course, remedy, and that is the broadest criteria of all, because in the same remedy, you want certain things to be there, and those would be, so at that level, then I would put more, not different aspects of the same issue, but I would put all the different issues, because now you're looking at the entire remedy. So I would want, for example, for this patient, Of course, in the case that I did before, I was looking for one remedy that has all these dreams, and then I was filtering it by a certain grouping and saying, just give me all the remedies that have all these dreams in the second row of the periodic table, the mineral remedies. But you could also say, show me all the remedies that have eczema in the folds of the skin, as well as difficulty breathing that is aggravated in a crowded room, as well as, I don't know, craving for cheese. And I could put that all in one search term and see what remedies come up. So, so that in that case, I would use this separator. I would use, the respiration issue in the same remedy as the craving for cheese, in the same remedy as dreams of knives, and see what remedies come up. So that is how you can use global search, either to create just a clipboard, or to really hone in and find the remedy that you're looking for.
Okay, thanks, Roopali. That was wonderful. One quick question somebody asked, can you put sensation rubrics with normal rubrics on a clipboard? If you could
Yes.
explain how that works a bit.
Yes, absolutely. So let's see, do I have normal rubric? I got rid of the normal rubrics. Okay, so I'm just going to go back here and let's say, no, oh, here, let's go back here. So you see, this is the advantage of having them all on tabs. You can go back and find all yours. So I'm just going to put some normal rubrics. And they're all the same, but it doesn't matter. So you can see what happens. So in a normal, when you put normal rubrics, obviously you're going to get the different remedies in your graph that come up for those rubrics. When you have sensation rubrics, it will point you to the grouping or the family or the kingdom that you might be looking at for that particular remedy, because sensations are not unique to individual remedies. There might be a certain sensation that's very unique and peculiar to one remedy, but in general, when you're looking at sensations, it's indicating a group of remedies. So you can see here, for example, instead of individual remedies, you have Cactaceae, Asteraceae, the carbon group, nitrogen group, the spider grouping, bird grouping, noble gases. So you can certainly put them all on the same clipboard, but where it's indicating for you to be going will be different. And so if I actually, so I could do this, I could say, and I could go back into another clipboard with regular rubrics, and I could just paste. I just copied and pasted. So I do have sensation rubrics on here, but you can see that the sensation rubrics do not overlap with the regular rubrics. They are their own thing. And so what you'll be seeing is two different kinds of information on the same clipboard. And it's actually, this is my perspective, it's actually harder to read because you have calc, and then you have Cactaceae, and then you have arse. And you're going to have to evaluate those separately because some of the sensations that you have. So now, interestingly, of course, we have all sorts of, these don't make sense because this is not a coherent case. There's just random rubrics on here. But, you could, for example, you could see calc, and then you might see mollusks, or you might see arse, and then you might see row 4, and so you might see groupings come up in the middle of individual remedies, And you would be able to see that if you see mollusks here and you see calc, then you can see that your sensation rubrics are indicating the same group of remedies that your individual rubric, your regular repertory rubrics are indicating. So, it might be useful here. It's kind of all mixed in, and so it doesn't really make sense. But that might be useful, but you can certainly put them all on one clipboard, or you can do different clipboards like I have, and then look at the information in each. You could start by creating different clipboards, and then you can certainly, go in here. I just did a right click again, and I could say, here, and I could say merge, and then it will create a different new clipboard for you with all the merged rubrics. When you hover over it, it will tell you that it was merged clipboard 1 and clipboard 4. When you click on that, you can see all of them together. So you can keep your individual clipboards, but then you could also merge them and put, your sensation rubrics along with your repertory rubrics, along with your reference library rubrics. You could even, combine those and put them all in the same clipboard, and it will give you a synergistic analysis between the different kinds of analysis, different kinds of tools you've used to look at that case. Does that help?
Yes, thanks so much, Roopali. And there are no more questions at this time.
Okay, great. And we are just past the hour. So I hope that was useful and gave you some ideas of the tools you can use in the program to look at your next case. And if you need a refresher on any of the basic functions, then we'll see you in 2 weeks. Otherwise, we'll do the advanced session again in the second half of February. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend, and thank you for coming.